Howdy y'all, I'm Kat, and this week is a crochet along for the netball. I'm super stoked about the netball. This is a really fun one to design, and it's actually a pretty simple thing to crochet. So super great for beginners, and another checkbox on our Crocheting Every Pokeball series. But just like real quick before the video gets started, at time of recording, we're like super close to having 1,000 subscribers. We even might be there by the time this video comes out. And I just want to say I am so very, very appreciative of all of your guys' support. I started doing YouTube about like a year and some change ago, and it's been just phenomenal to like read all your guys' comments, to like see how much I'm helping people and how much fun you guys are getting out of it. So I just really want to say thank you. We're close to getting monetized, and I've got plans for like membership and then to get some like better equipment so we can have a little bit more consistent video stuff, which will be fun for me to learn again too. But yeah, thank you. Anyways, back to the pattern. Oh, I forgot to mention that the written version of this pattern is going to be available on my Etsy, link down below, until the 5th of July for 25% off. So it'll be about $1.50. But yeah, let's get to the video now. As always, there's going to be timestamps down below so you can jump to any part of the video that you need. But the first thing we're going to go over is our materials. So yarn-wise, I'm using Yarnsmiths Cotton Aran in the color Light Petrol. This is also Yarnsmiths Cotton Aran in the color Black. And then this is Drops Paris in the color Off-White. This is also an Aran weight cotton yarn. Then, I was gonna say, you can use any yarn for this pattern. The only thing I will kind of mention though is when we sew this net piece on, it's gonna be sewn under tension. So using a yarn that snaps easy, I'm thinking like a single ply wool or maybe even chenille at some points, isn't going to be the best option for that, or you'll have to be really careful, or you can just attach another type of yarn to the net and then sew in with that, but just something to be aware of. Hook wise, I'm going to be using a 3mm hook. If you're using yarn that's a different weight than mine or just a different yarn than mine in general, use a hook that's 2mm smaller than what's recommended on the package. Then you're going to need stitch markers. You're only going to need about like 4 of them, a trusty darning needle. You're gonna need your snips, some pins to pin everything in place before we sew, and then some stuffing to stuff the bad boy. But that is going to be it for materials. So gather all your stuff together and I'll see you in the next section and we'll start working on this ball. All right, let's go. The body's gonna be pretty simple. We're just gonna be doing a sphere from the top down. There's gonna be a couple spicy rows, but we'll get there when we get there. Yarn-wise, we're going to need our light petrol colored yarn, the black, and the off-white. And let's just get going. I'm gonna start you guys off with this, and then because it's just a normal sphere, we're gonna just kind of speed run it. But first we're gonna need to start with a magic ring, video for a magic ring up there. But I'm gonna put this over my finger. Got my 3mm hook and a stitch marker. I'm gonna pull that through, chain to lock it in place. And here we go. So our first round is just going to be 6 single crochets into this magic ring. So there's 1, there's 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I didn't mark my first one, but I'm going to pull the tail first, just tighten it. I didn't mark that first one, but we'll just count backwards to figure out where that stitch is, and I'll try to remember to use it next round. All right, so from my hook, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's my 6th one, or the first one of my round. And we're gonna be joining all of our rounds for this sphere with a full invisible increase. Video up there for it, but let's just do it here real quick. So I pulled my loop a little bit longer. I'm gonna take my hook out. Now I'm going to go into this first stitch from the back to the front. So underneath both of those loops, got first one, got my second. One trick when you're working the magic rings is to not pull it completely super tight first and wait until you do like the first stitch of the next round, then pull it really, really tight. It kind of just helps so that you can get into that stitch a little bit easier. But anyways, on with that full invisible. I'm putting that loop back on my hook and then I'm gonna pull it through. Perfect. So I like to kind of just give this a little tighten just to make sure everything's kind of sitting correctly. And that looks good. Now I'm gonna make this loop about the same size as my stitches, maybe a little bit longer, but that looks good. Now I remove my hook from that loop and I'm gonna pinch on it so that we don't lose it. And then right here where the loop got pulled over, I'm gonna go underneath that. There we go. And now I'm gonna put that loop back onto my hook, like so. I'm gonna give that another good tighten down. And we're looking good. And I'm going to yarn over and pull this through those two loops on my hook. This one can be a little tricky to get into. If you kind of like pinch here and kind of pull it back, it kind of elongates it a little bit so you can kind of get in there a little bit easier. Perfect. So we should have something that looks like this. I am now going to start round 2. And round 2 is going to be a chain with 6 increases. So I'm going to chain to start. And in case you haven't worked with these full invisible increases before, or sorry, full invisible joins before, this is the loop that we just pulled through, right? That little, well, I guess technically that's a chain, but it's around the loop that we just pulled through. This little bump right here is actually that stitch that we pulled to the back. So the first stitch of this round is going to be this one right here. It should be fully visible for you. So we're just going to start by doing our increases into there. And I'm doing invisible increases, so I'm going through the front loop first, and then I'm going through both loops. I'll throw my stitch marker in here this time. Okay. So I'm just going to continue doing these increases all the way around, and then I think after this round, we'll start doing the speed run. I'll show you how to do that full invisible one more time before I let y'all go. And yeah, it'll be super simple. Let's see, almost there. Boo, boo, boo. Boo, boo, boo. And we have 2 more. The first thing I'm actually going to do here is I'm going to tighten up my magic ring. Split that one. Okay. So let me go ahead. My magic ring's open right there. It's because I just didn't pull it super tight at the beginning, but I'll just pull it tight now. There we go. Got it all closed up. So a couple things I want to show you real quick. So if we kind of notice the way that our join looks, in case you don't have your stitch marker in, we have here, this is our chain, and then that's going to be our first stitch of the round. So let me take this out so we can kind of see what we're looking at here. So this little thing right here is going to be that loop that we pulled to the back. Here is that first chain of the round, and this is going to be the first single crochet of the round. You kind of, excuse me, have like a right angle-ish kind of thing happening here. Just so it's easy for you to identify so you don't have to undo your round just in case. But let's go ahead and use a full invisible increase again to join this round. So I'm going to go into the back of that first stitch. Oop. Looks like I'm working fairly tight today. All right, so I'm going to put this loop back on my hook and pull it through. Get that kind of pulled over nice and tight. Now I want to adjust this loop so that it's about the same size as my stitches. You can make them, again, like at 1 stitch to like 1.5 stitch sizes. The thing is you want to keep it short so that when we go to tighten it, you don't get some weird like bunching in the middle. Again, see the full video on how to do a full invisible increase for a little deeper explanation. But I'm got this bump right here. That's that loop. I'm putting my hook underneath it. And then I'm putting the loop on my hook. There we go. And I'm tightening that down. I'm just pulling on the active yarn to do so away from me. And I'm going to yarn over and pull through. Oh, that felt like it snagged on something. There we go. And that's our full invisible increase. So we're just going to keep on working a standard circle with staggered increases up for a few more rows. I'm just going to show you the end of each round because we're working in rounds, not rows. Joined rounds, that is. But yeah, so I will just show you the end, and then we'll come back here when something more interesting happens. All right, see you at the end of round 3. End of round 3. End of round 4. End of round 5. End of round 6, getting bigger. End of round 7. All right, so here we are at the end of round 8. Now, this is when things are going to get a little bit more spicy and interesting. So I'm going to do the next couple of rounds with you. And we're going to start splicing in the black. Now, we're just going to start by working split stitches, which video up there if you need an in-depth look at how to do it. But I'm going to be walking you through it. It's going to be pretty simple. So round 9 is going to start with the chain, and then we're just going to do some stitches around, incorporating split stitches in there. All of these split stitches, by the way, the tops of the stitches are going to be black, and the bottom of the stitches are going to be in this light petrol color. And in all of the split stitches, except for one of them, we're going to end the split stitch by pulling through with this light petrol colored yarn. That might mean something to some of you, but if it doesn't, don't worry. That's what this crochet along is for. So let's start with 6 single crochets. So I'm going to find that first stitch and go in. But I'm actually going to try to lock in my black yarn a little bit sooner. So there's 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to lock in my black yarn here. So to do that, in this 4th stitch, I'm going to put my hook in, and then I'm just going to take my black yarn and lay it over with the tail on the right side of my hook. If you're left-handed, it'd be on the left side of your hook. And I'm just going to crochet this 4th stitch over that yarn. So do you see how when I'm doing this single crochet, part of the yarn's going over, and then I complete it. If I show you from the back, we kind of have that kind of stuck in that, get everything out of the way for you, but we kind of have that stuck underneath that stitch. So it's just going to kind of help us anchor it, and we're going to be carrying this black yarn using that same method all the way through there. So I'm going to lock it in one more time. So for my 5th stitch, I'm going to go into the stitch, throw my black yarn over my hook, and single crochet. There's 5. And then for our 6th single crochet, I'm not going to lock in the black, but we are going to end this stitch with our black. So got 2 loops on my hook. I'm going to drop my petrol colored yarn. I'm going to pick up my black, and then I'm going to yarn under rather, and pull through. Cool. So we should have something that looks like this. Now our next stitch is going to be a split stitch, and again we want the bottom to be in the petrol color and the top in the black. So I'm going to go into the stitch. I'm going to drop my black colored yarn. I'm going to pick up my petrol colored yarn, and then I'm going to yarn under. So here we are, 2 loops on our hook. We've done our split stitch. We can tell because we have the black loop on our hook and the light petrol colored yarn, and I'm going to end the split stitch with this light petrol colored yarn. And I'm going to show you that we've completed a stitch now that has the black at the top and the petrol at the bottom. Easy peasy, easy peasy. All right. So next up we have 10 single crochets, and we want to carry our black with us. I don't like to carry on this first stitch, but now I'm going to carry like every other stitch. So 2, black on top, single crochet. 3, not going to carry it. 4, am going to carry it. 5, not going to carry it. 6, am going to carry, and so on and so forth. So you kind of see what I'm doing here. So there's 7, there's 8, here's 9, and 10. 10, I am going to carry it. And for number 10, we're going to again change to our black colored yarn. So I'm going to pick up my black colored yarn and I'm going to pull through with that. Now next stitch, split stitch, where we're going to have, again, the bottom of the stitch being the petrol. So I'm going to drop the black, pick up the light petrol. Got my split on there. Now I'm going to finish with my petrol. There we go. Next we have, what is it? 5 single crochets. So not going to carry, and then carry every other. So there's 1, here's 2, then 3, no carry, 4, yes. And I'm also going to carry on this 5th one just to get us all lined up. But in this 5th one, we are switching to black at the end of the stitch as well. So I'm going to drop the petrol, light petrol, pick up the black and pull through. And now we have 2 of those split stitches. So for this first split stitch, we are going to end it with the black yarn. So I'm going to go in, drop my black, pick up that petrol, pull that through. And I do want to end this with the black colored yarn, right? Because our next one's going to have a black top as well. And this final pull through controls the top of your next stitch. So I dropped the petrol, picked up the black, finished with the black. Now I'm going to do another one of those split stitches. So I'm going to go in, drop the black, pick up the light petrol, and 2 loops on our hook. And we do want to finish this one though with the petrol. So there we go. You should have what amounts to 2 stitches. Both of them, the tops are in that black colored yarn. You probably noticed the sun's been like peeking in and out of the clouds today. So I hope you enjoy the light show. But let's continue. We have, where am I? I'm looking at the pattern right now. Boop, boop, boop. 5 single crochets. So not going to carry on the first one. And there's 1, 2 carry, 3, 4 carry, and then I will carry on the 5 as well. And then we're going to finish off this 5th one with the black. Oops, twisted it in the back there. Okay, so finish with the black. Now we have 1 split stitch, in, drop the black, pick up the light petrol, yarn under, pull through, and then finish with the petrol. Now we have 10 single crochets, not carrying on the first, yes on the second, and then every other. So 3, no, 4, yes, 5, no, and 6, yes. My twisted yarn's catching up with me, so let's kind of fix that real quick. And then goldfish brain, I just said 6, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sure did. All right, 7, no, 8, yes, 9, no, 10, yes, and then 10 is also going to be one of those ones that we finish off with the black colored yarn. Then we have 1 more split stitch to do on this round. So drop the yarn, pick up the yarn, and this one we are also going to end with that light petrol colored. So pull that through. And then to finish off the round, we should just have 6 single crochets, and we want to continue to carry the black with us. So 1, no, 2, yes, carry, 3, no, 4, yes, Oop, I split that one. I feel like, especially with this lighter colored yarn, where is that, 3 no, you really want to make sure you don't get any splits because I think they're just easier to see in the finished product. So 4 yes, 5 no, and 6 yes with the carry. Okay. So now we're going to join this again with one of those full invisible join stitches. Boop, boop, boop. So pull that long. Find my first stitch. Remember how we find it? That right there is that starting chain. Here's the first stitch. So I'll go into there from the back. You're probably a pro at this now. As you get better and better at doing these like full invisible joins, you'll start like making this loop here like smaller and smaller. It almost becomes like an addictive game to see like how small you can get it and still make it work. All right. Ooh. I dropped it, but I didn't lose it. All right, so I'm tightening that up. And there we go. So at the end of this round, you should have something that looks like this. We have, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 6 black stitch tops around. And in this next round, we're also going to be working some split stitches, but we're going to do the opposite this time. So this time, all the split stitches, which will line up with where our black ones are now, the bottoms are going to be black and the tops are going to be the light petrol color. Happy Pride Month, by the way. So let's go ahead and start with a chain. And we're going to start off by doing 6 single crochets, and I'm not going to carry in this first one, but I will start carrying the black in the second one. So there's, whoops. So there's 1. Now I'm not pulling that black. Let me show you back here. I'm just letting it lie flat. If you pull it, you can distort the overall like shape of the sphere. So just let it lay flat. If you're really worried about it, just keep it slack, you know, give it so that there's like a little bit of give in the back here. But so there's 2, 3 no carry, 4 yes carry, 5 no, 6 yes. And we don't need to switch our colors, right? Because we want the tops of these to be this petrol color. So I'm going to finish this stitch. And before we continue, I'm going to untangle this just because I can already tell that I probably should have done it sooner. I always feel like when you're working in split stitches or doing color work, it can be kind of annoying to like de-twist your yarn. So you always like save it for the last possible moment. I should probably get better at that, but I don't know. I'm an old dog. All right, so let's do this first split stitch of the round. So I'm going to go into the top of that black yarn. Now I'm going to drop the light petrol, pick up the black, yarn under, pull up a loop. And now I'm going to drop the black again and pick up the light petrol and yarn under and pull through both without splitting. Cool. So now we should have something that looks like this. So we have the black on the bottom and the light petrol up on the top. What we essentially did is we just created like a full stitch that's going to be in the black. And that's going to be a helpful tool for later. So let's continue on. We need to make 10 single crochets, not carrying in the first, yes carrying in the second. The reason that I like to kind of not carry in the first, you can honestly carry the yarn and skip as many stitches as you want here, but I like to not carry in the first because I find that it tends to make where you did the color change or the split stitch a little bit more bulky. I don't know if that's just the way that I crochet or if that's like a general consensus. Maybe I'll do a video in the future kind of discussing that, but in general, and whenever I like talk about it or teach people, I tend to not want to carry right next to where I did the color change. And that's probably like an 8 out of 10 times kind of situation for me personally. So where are we? We just did one, two, okay. So we are on a not carry. So yes, carry on 8, don't carry on 9, do carry on 10, and then split stitch. So we go underneath that black stitch, drop the light petrol, pick up the black, yarn under, pull through, drop the black, pick up the light petrol. All right, so now we have 5 single crochets, not carrying in the first, yes in the second, no 3, yes 4, and in this case I am also going to carry in the 5th. Me breaking that rule of not carrying right next to a color change. That's why I said like 7, 8 out of 10 times. All right, so split stitch. Not me being a hypocrite in the same breath. All right, so drop the light petrol, pick up the black, yarn under, pull through, drop the black, pick up the light petrol, yarn under, pull through. Perfect. So next stitch, split stitch again. So drop, pick up, drop, pick up. And there we go. So at the end of that, we should have 2 stitches in a row where the bodies are made in that black yarn and the top is made in the light colored petrol, or the light petrol. I'm gonna say that probably like 25 different ways throughout the whole course of this video. So 5 single crochets. Not carrying in the first as norm for me. Oh, see now that time I could feel that I pulled on that black, so I'm just gonna loosen that up a little bit. So 2, 3, 4, and 5, carrying on that 5th. Okay, get out some more yarn. Okay, so now we're at another split stitch. So go in. These split stitches are fairly easy to figure out where to put them in this round because we already have them kind of placed in the round previous for us, or mapped, I should say. And now we have 10 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and here is our last split stitch of this round. Whoop, whoop, whoop. All right, so into the black, dropping the light petrol, picking up the black, dropping the black, picking up the light petrol, finishing a stitch. And again, we're gonna end this round with 6 single crochets and we're gonna carry the black with us. So there's 1, there's 2, 3, 4, they're doing some construction outside. Don't know if you can hear that. Sorry if you can. 4, 5, and 6, carrying it in that 6. Now, this round's going to end slightly different. We're actually just going to use a standard join slip stitch. So I'm going to just pop this out because we're starting to kind of curve in on the sphere. And to do a join slip stitch, it's exactly what it sounds like on the tin. I'm going to go into the first stitch of this round and do a slip stitch. So there's my first, right? We have our chain that looks a little splitty, but not too bad. And then our first stitch of the round. So I'm just going to go in there and I'm going to pull my working yarn tight. Then I'm going to just slip stitch into here, and then I'm going to pull that tight again. Okay. So this next round, I'm going to start and then I'm going to leave you until we get to the end of it. And this is going to be a round of back post single crochets, all made in the black colored yarn. So that means, let me get my scissors at the ready. I'm going to pick up that black yarn, and to start round, what is this, 11, I'm going to chain in the black. Perfect. And now I'm going to work a back post single crochet. Now remember, because we just did a join slip stitch, our slip stitch is going into that first stitch, right? So there's the slip stitch right there. It's going into our first stitch, and we're going to do a back post into there. So I'm going to go into that first stitch from the back, wrap around the post, just something that looks like that. And then I'm going to yarn under, pull through, and then yarn under, pull through, just to complete that stitch. Now, because we are working in black, I do like to have a stitch marker. It will be easy to locate this, but you know, just in case it's not as easy as I think it's going to be. And now we're going to continue with 48 back post single crochets in total. Let me show you just a couple more. Maybe I'll go over to where we did our first little split stitch so you can just see us go in there. So there's 2. Remember, I'm working through the post, so it might look like kind of like you're going into the stitch you just exited from, but that is exactly what it should look like. 3, 4, 5, 6, and then let me just show you what it looks like when we go around one of these. Now the top of the stitch is going to be in that light petrol, so it's super easy. And if you were kind of manipulating your yarn in the way that I was showing you, where we were dropping and picking it up, it's going to be pretty easy to get back there. You're not really going to hit any resistance. If you do, just take it slow, you know, you'll be good. All right. But yeah, that's it. So we're just doing those back post single crochets all the way around this rim. So I'll get close to the end and then I'll meet you back here. All right. Okay, so I'm back. I have 2 more stitches to do, and let me show you these 2 real quick. So 47, just like a regular one. And now 48, we're going to do a little bit different. So if we get kind of close up here, we can see that we have our first stitch right here. And then we have this, which is going to be our chain where we kind of like connected everything. I'm actually going to aim to go into that chain stitch. I found through some testing that it kind of just makes the whole spot a little bit less bulky and it kind of lines up a little bit better. So I'm going to go into that stitch like I would normally do for my back post, but I'm going to aim for this. I'm going to aim, let's see if I can manipulate this, for this bridge right here. Now there's going to be some resistance, but if we just wiggle our way through, we can see it. So I'm actually coming up, if you look really closely, kind of next to the chain in that blue. Or I guess that would be the loop of the blue that we pulled through. So I'm just going to yarn under and pull that through. Ooh. Again, like I said, this is going to be a little bit tricky because there's a lot going on over there. But just wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. What are we getting caught on? I think we're getting caught on, yeah, it looks like we're getting caught on this black right here. So what I may try to do is pull it with my hook angled more up. There we go. Split it, but that's fine. We can probably catch those fibers and then pull it through. There we go. Sweet. So finish that stitch, and there's my last one. And I'm going to join
round 11 with a full invisible join this time. Let's take out that stitch marker. I'm gonna go underneath that first stitch. I know this is black, but this is like pretty simple stuff, so I think you guys can handle it. When we make the net though, I am gonna be switching to a different color so I can show you what's going on there. So I'm gonna pull that through. Going to give this a nice little tug to tighten it down. I'm going to hold it, go underneath the loop that we pulled through, put the loop back on my hook. Cool. Give that another snug tight. This one we do want to kind of give it a little tighter than normal because it could potentially pull back just because the tension on where everything's pulling is going to be a little bit different here. Cool. So there we go. You should have something that kind of looks like that. All right. So, oh, the other thing I forgot to mention that I probably should have a while ago is we don't need this light petrol anymore, so we can cut this. Just leave it like a 2-inch, 5-centimeter tail. And you can weave this in if you want, but I'm not going to because it's going to be stuck in there pretty well. If you're going to be heavily playing with this, like throwing it around, you might want to consider putting it in, but realistically, the tension's going to be fine there. Okay, so round 12, 12 is going to be all split stitches, and this is when we're going to start incorporating our off-white color in. So let me pull some of that, and I'll get you started on it, and then we'll go. So I'm going to start by chaining with the white, or the off-white rather. Woo. And we are just going to do 48 split stitches. So let me load up here, get my white, get my tension back. Remember, we did that join, so even though it's really, really dark, here is my first stitch, right? It's where we pulled the loop into. That's the first stitch. So I'm going to go into there, drop my white, pick up my black. Here, I also kind of like to not twist the yarn too much. So I dropped the white over to the side here, picked up my black, and then finish off the stitch with the white. All of these split stitches, the top is going to be white and the bottom's going to be black. So let me show you a couple more of those. So I'm going to go in, drop my off-white, pick up my black, yarn to pull through, drop my black, pick up my off-white, and there we go. One more time. Drop white, pick up black, yarn under, pull through. Drop black, pick up white, yarn under, and pull through. Cool. So just do that all the way around, and I'll see you on the other side. Okay, so I got my twisty up tail, but I'm almost done here, so I'm just going to leave it. And I've got 2 more stitches to do. So going in, dropping, picking up. Finish that off. And then this will be my 48th. Cool. So we should be ending off with this off-white colored yarn. And now we're going to join, and we are going to join this one with a slip stitch. So I'm just going to find that first stitch, pretty easy to see here. I'm going to go in there. Come on, work with me here. All right, got it. Now I'm going to pull those tight, and I'm just going to do a regular slip stitch. Awesome. So at this point, we can cut the black colored yarn, leaving about a 2-inch, 5-centimeter tail. Same rules apply. You don't need to sew it in unless, again, it's going to be heavily played with, in which case I would sew it in. But we are done with that black colored yarn for now. And let's go ahead and start round 13. Round 13 is going to be all back post single crochets. So let's go ahead and chain 1 to start. And we're going to go into the first stitch, which is where we put our slip stitch into. So I'm going to go into there and go around the post. Ooh. And there's my first single crochet. You can go ahead and mark this one just in case. And yeah, let's just continue going around. These are back posts. Again, oops. If you, oh man, that's split over there too. Here, okay. Let's just redo that. This is what happens when you don't always untwist your yarn where you're supposed to. It can make it get a little bit splittier depending on the yarn that you're working with. But I think, okay, cool, we saved it. What was I going to say? Oh, yes. So this whole round is going to be back post single crochets, and assuming that you were good and consistent with like the way that you were putting your yarn over, you should have a pattern that looks like something like that on the inside. This should be super easy for you to do. There shouldn't be any yarn in the way. If you are finding that there's some in the way, you got 2 options. One is to just kind of be careful as you're working these not to pull any of that stuff to the front. However, we are talking about like the contrast between black and white. So you may want to redo the round and be just a little more cognizant, but I'm not your dad. So you do whatever you want, but I will see you at the end of this round, which is round 13. All right, in a bit. Okie dokie, so I'm almost done here. I just got 2 more stitches to do. So here's 47. And then 48. And we're gonna do the same thing here with 48. So I'm gonna go under that single crochet around the post, and then underneath here where I did that slip stitch. Remember, there'll be a little resistance. And then we'll yarn under and pull through. That one was a lot easier. Cool. And finish off our last back post. And then we want to join this round with a full invisible join stitch. So gonna pull that up. And I do believe that for the rest of the project now, we're back to only using these full invisible joins. Well, at least for the ball part portion. Oh, I'm getting caught on something. There we go. Okay. So pull that a little bit longer, just so I can get in here. Whoop. And there we go. Okay. So let's get this pulled through, and then we'll have a little chat about what's going on next. Okay. So I'm going to pull that long, and then flip myself right side out. So we should have something that looks a little bit like this. So you'll have our little sphere. You should have a couple of black dots going around it, maybe some little white fluff, and then the black line, and we should have 2 rows of, do you see how these are kind of like upturned? That's what those back posts do for us. So if you're sitting like this and you're looking pretty, then we can continue on. And I'm going to go back to kind of speed running, because at this point we are just going to be closing this in the same manner that you would close a regular sphere. So for round 14, we're just going to start with the chain and then do 48 single crochets around. Remember, we did a full invisible, so this is our stitch. That's our first stitch of the round. So I'm just going to start that off, and then, oh, I just pulled that through. I'm going to just crochet around it. Look at that. So yeah, just 48 single crochets, and we're going to speed run this, like I said. So I'll show you the end of each round, and then we'll catch up once things get a little bit more interesting. All right, in a bit. End of round 14. End of round 15. Probably should have said that I'm using invisible decreases, but you can use whatever kind of decrease you like. End of round 16. End of round 17. Oop. Bloop. End of row 18. Little squishy boy. Here we are at the end of round 19. Now, I just did the full invisible join. I'm going to pull that long real quick because it's going to be time to stuff. So let me just grab my stitch marker, throw it in there. And let's use our finger first to kind of poke this out. So as we're looking at this, you might notice like there's kind of indentations around, and they're kind of usually located next to where we did those split stitches. So I'm just gonna come and poke those out just ever so much. That's just gonna help us when we're stuffing. And then I'll do that around here at the bottom too, just around the edge. And now we can get going. So this is going to be pretty much the standard stuffing rules for all the other Pokeballs. We're going to stuff it firm, almost a little bit overstuffed. The good way to kind of tell here, I'm just fluffing up the fluff, is this band, if you overstuff it too much, it'll start to get like little wonky and won't be straight anymore. But that's going to take a decent amount of stuff in, so we might as well get going while we are here. And remember, we kind of hook our finger and pull to really kind of fill out those edges, and it also helps us kind of keep them pushed out. So I'm just going to continue going around here. I'm going to film this, but I'm going to speed it up, and then I will slow down when something interesting happens that I want to tell you about. All right? Okay. Okay, so I'm doing some final checks right here. We got a nice little, what is that, even like a spaceship. I'm gonna just kind of squish it around, make it a little bit more spherical so we can get kind of a better view of what's going on here. So I'm liking the top. We still have some more rounds to do at the bottom, so that's good. And I like to feel kind of the sides and make sure they all have the same amount of resistance. There's like a little bit right here that could use some stuffing, so I'm going to grab some and put some in there. And, you know, don't worry too much at this step. You know, we're going to have one more time to kind of stuff this guy up. One thing that I think is kind of important is to remember that we're aiming our stuffing when we're putting it in there. So if there's a part that feels kind of wonky to you, aim to put stuffing in there. Don't just start like putting it out and hope that it'll fluff itself out. I am going to grab just another hook just to kind of go down into the middle of my stuffing, see if I can find some purchase, and then just kind of like push it out to the sides just to really make sure that we're filling up every nook and cranny. When we're stuffing, our goal is to fit stuffing into every section of the piece. So it's a little bit more apparent if we were making like some sort of animal or whatever, we'd want to put stuffing directly into the limbs. And I think when we have a sphere, you tend to not think about that, right? Because the sphere doesn't really have any angles. There's no little like hidden caverns. So you have a tendency to just stuff the stuffing into it. But that's not really technically true, right? Because we're making this in a way that there are like corners, right? Wherever we do the increases. So we need to fill those out. And the better we are at kind of filling at each of those locations, the more spherical our shape's going to be. Does that make sense, kind of? So it might be tempting when you're filling, I mean, anything that's going to be round. It doesn't need to be a sphere. It could be like the head of a thing or a body. But it's very tempting to kind of just put stuffing in there. But you do want to follow the same principles as if you were stuffing limbs. That's kind of what I'm trying to say here. But I think we feel good. Right here, these parts still don't really have that much in there. I might just throw a little bit more stuffing in, but then I'm also probably going to just wait, right? And then we'll fill these little side pieces once we get this last couple of rounds done. Just because I like to have a little bit of extra space and wiggle room, just because it makes the stitching so much easier. But I think we feel good right here. Now let's check our line. Our line looks pretty good. Here, there's going to be a bump, but that's just where that joint is. So when we cover that up, that looks pretty solid. All right, good from the top. Yeah, I like that a lot. Okay, so let's go ahead and pick up our hook, get it back on our yarn. I'll probably just do these last couple rounds and the final stuffing with ya. Okay. Oh. Uh-oh. Oh, whew. I thought we buried it. All right, so here we are at the end of round 19. I tend to like do an extra loop around my finger when I get to the end here to kind of keep the tension a little bit tighter. Well, talking and doing it at the same time. Just because I find like I don't have as of a grasp on it when my hand's so open. But let's go ahead and start round 20, which is going to be just regular decrease round. I'm going to do a chain. Why am I using that hook? That's crazy. That's some crazy talk right there. All right. Now let's do round 20. So it's going to start with the chain and just your standard decrease round. So we're going to do a single crochet and a decrease all the way around. So single crochet, decrease. Oops, split that. Again, here's me doing those invisible decreases. I'm just going to repeat that pattern all the way around. I'd be interested to know what kind of decreases do you prefer to use? So I am usually a big proponent of just using the invisible decreases. I do think that it gives kind of a nicer looking stitch pattern at the front, and it's fairly unobtrusive. That's what I was looking for. But I know that there are a lot of people out there and some like pretty prominent like amigurumi artists. Like I'm saying like professionals respected in the industry kind of types of people. Their names escape me now, but that use full style increases, decreases, and increases for that matter in their amigurumi. So yeah, I just wonder what you guys like to do. I've been tempted to try to start using full increases because I do sometimes find that the invisible style decreases, if you do them wrong, have a higher propensity of leaving some gaps in your work. I've kind of been looking over some of my older pieces and I'm noticing that. One way here, I'll show you real quick. One of the ways that you kind of alleviate that. So after you do a decrease invisibly or visibly, you tend to have a big gap when you go into this next stitch. So one thing that you can do is kind of like turn your hook here and pull your working yarn so that the loop on your hook is the same size as like the loops of the stitches that you're making. And that will help to close that up and keep the tension correct. But again, that is kind of just like, oh, I totally messed that up, didn't I? That was supposed to be a single crochet. Where am I? Yes, right? Yeah, that was supposed to be a single. Whoopsies. Oh, that was a single. See, this is what I'm saying. This happens to me every time when I do this. Brain fart moment. So, so yeah, we pull it sideways and go up. So the reason this is what I'm saying is like, so because of how much like thought it takes for me to do that, apparently, I always mess up when I'm counting, when I'm doing the decreases, really trying to focus on that. And I think that those regular decreases might be an antidote, but I also am just slightly worried about the way that they look. I don't know. I should probably just do a testing swatch. Okay. So that was the end of round, where were we? 20? So our next one's gonna, oh no, we need to join this. So yeah, invisible join, slip stitch. There we go. Woo. probably could have made that loop a little bit longer. Yeah, let's do that. It'll be easier. There we go. So throw that on the hook, pull it through, get that nice and tight, make that loop a little bit shorter. Okay, hold on to it. I'm going underneath the loop itself, putting the loop back on the hook, giving that a tug, and pulling through. All right, so this next round is going to be the last round of the ball, and it's just going to be decreases. So I'm going to chain and do those decreases. There's also like some instances that you'll see in some of the other patterns where I will default to using a regular decrease, and actually we will in the net as well. I haven't filmed that part yet, but in the net we're going to use full regular style decreases, because sometimes you just need to have both loops of the stitch kind of under control, which I guess is to say that even when we fall on techniques that we like to rely on and use all the time, I think it's always good to remember why we're using that technique in that situation. What are things that we like about it? What are things we don't like about it? What are some of the like actual practical things that are going on? You know, I think it's always good to kind of always in life, you know, just examine what you're doing. Can you explain to yourself why you're doing it? And if you can't do those things, then maybe it's time to change. And thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I have been your cool gay uncle here to give you life advice. All right, let me get that last one in there. Ooh. Okay, cool, very good. Alrighty then. So now this final one, I do like to just join again with the slip stitch. I think it just makes the closing look a little bit more seamless. So I'm going to count back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And this might be a doozy to get into. Oops. Okay. Did we get it? Yeah, cool. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and pull my stitch, my working yarn a little bit tighter. And then we're going to slip stitch this through. Wonderful. Now I'm going to not lose my scissors. Just a second. I don't know how I always lose these scissors all the time, but anyways, we got the big boys. They'll work. I'm just going to cut this, leaving about a, 6-inch or 15-centimeter long tail. And I'm just going to draw that up through the last stitch. Oh, that's a longer tail than I thought it was. And now we're going to finish up our stuffing. So here's where I think using like the back of a crochet hook that's not like one of these, or a chopstick, or, you know, anything long and pointy. And we want to fill out, for me specifically, I definitely need to fill out these little sides right here. But then we'll also need to fill up these last couple of rounds. So let me grab some more stuffing, and let's get at it. I'm like looking around on this table, and there are not a lot of places for scissors to hide. So I'm really wondering where I put them. All right. So first I'm going to go in and I'm going to just stuff in all these little side spots that I can feel are a little lackluster. We are, again, just going to kind of keep the eye on our little stripe here. Once that kind of starts getting distorted, that's how we'll know that we've put in way too much. But yeah, I'm just probably going to fast forward and we'll go I'll come back when need be. All right. See you in a second. Okay, so one thing is happening that I want to kind of chat about. So I'm starting to like specifically aim for these sections, and the way that I'm doing it is I'm not pushing like all the way through, right? I'm going kind of barely just a little bit into here, and then kind of rounding it down into that spot. So it kind of looks like I'm poking a little bit of the way in until I get a decent amount. Then I'm going in and kind of following the outside curve, kind of like that. Hope that visual helped. And again, this is just that part that I was talking about where we're aiming where we're putting our stuffing, right? I don't really want to push it further than where I actually want the stuffing to be sitting, which does make this a little bit tedious, especially when we're doing it with the stick, but you know, it's going to be worth it. We're going to have a nice looking sphere. And here we go. You might notice that I'm just kind of using one big fluff ball and kind of aiming it all around. I think this is a well enough method for what we're doing here. You could also do this as smaller individual fluff pieces if you have like more kind of like a whole bunch of small pocketed areas that need it. But because basically what we're filling out is just like this little section of the ball all the way around, I think one piece, great anime, and then we kind of just fan it around is going to be our best option. All right, let's go. We are almost there. Now when I'm going in, I'm really just barely putting it in and then like tucking it up to the top because I'm trying to just fill this little bottom spot where all the fluff is coming out. Okay. Maybe I should do like a full video on stuffing techniques as like a standalone. I don't know. You guys let me know if you'd want to see that. All right, so I think we're good. You know, I'm giving it a little palpitation all the way around. Palpation? Emperor Palpatine? The dead speak? So yeah, I feel like we're stuffed pretty firm and it feels even. That line is starting to get a little bit distorted here. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, we can see it's kind of starting to rise right there. I think that'll be good. Let me make this into an actual sphere shape real quick instead of this little squish thing. And we'll recheck it. So it does look like a little wobbly. So I think what I am gonna do is I don't want to pull out a lot because I really like the way that it's pulled out down here. But I think a little bit might be in order. So I'm just gonna use the hook and grab some. We're gonna take this out little by little, and this is where putting it in a whole bunch of small pieces might kind of be a little maybe less helpful because I can kind of just draft this up, and it's almost like when you're kind of splitting wool, right? If I grab the fibers at the end, I can take them out without taking out the big bulk of the thing. It's a little more tedious, but it's gonna make sure that most of our fluff that we've laid in there is gonna stay in there instead of just like pulling out that whole chunk that we just added in there. And I think we only really needed to remove a little bit. So I think that this will probably be good. Yeah, okay. So I'm just gonna kind of feel around. So it looks like most of it came out of this side. So we're gonna aim that back kind of just right into that little pocket right there. Okay. I hope that these little kind of minutia things are helpful. I think there's multiple times where I talk about how I think there's some stuff in crochet that we kind of just assume everybody knows, you know, but I don't think anybody really kind of teaches you those things. I mean, at least with stuffing, this is stuff that I've kind of figured out more so than been told. And I mean, while I'm here, might as well tell you guys about it. Okay, yeah, that's looking a lot better with that sphere, with that line around there. How are we from the front? We're looking good. All right, cool. So I am happy with this. Let's give it one more go just to make sure. I like to kind of get a couple eyeballs on it just to, or like a couple forms, just to make sure that it wasn't just like perfect that one time. Yeah, I'm happy with that. All right, so let's close off this bad boy. And I'm going to use a darning needle. And you can close off however you like, but I'm going to show you my preferred method. And the way that I do it is I work through the back loops only, and I go into one back loop and up through the other back loop. So let's look here. So if we can see, it's kind of hard with the fluff, but here's our first 2 stitches, right? So I'm going to go into the back loop of this one, just like that. And then I'm going to aim to come up out of the back loop of the one next to me, or next to it. This can be a little tricky, but there we go. Nice. Now we're not splitting the yarn, we're just going through the centers because we are going to need to pull this. Let me show you that one more time. So I'm going to go in here, into the back loop. And I think this one's going to be kind of hard, so we're going to do this in 2 strokes. So I go from the outside to the inside underneath in the back loop, and I'm going to go from the inside of the hole to the outside underneath the back loop. Even doing it too, yeah, there we go. Can be a little tricky. Now, next one, into the back loop. And I think we can scoop over. Yeah, there we go. In the back loop, the other one. And then we're going to give that a pull. Now, when we're here and we're pulling, we kind of want to pull in a circular motion. So I'm going to pull over here first, then I'm going to turn and pull, and I'm going to turn and pull and turn and pull. I don't know if that actually does anything, but it feels like it does. And that's kind of half the battle. And now we need to bury our yarn. So let's go ahead and look here at the top. And it looks like that the center of our pull is like right here. It's kind of where our yarn is, tail is coming out. And I'm going to put my needle into that space, and I'm going to try to find a spot on this opposite side where my needle can easily come through. We don't want to split the yarn, we want to be coming through a space, and that looks good. So I'm going to pull it through there. Sorry, don't use your teeth, kids. Okay, and we're through. And now I'm going to pull this really, really tight, and it's going to pull that little end nipple kind of to the inside. Now, if you're using acrylic, you may not want to pull that tight. I'm using cotton here. Wool, definitely don't pull tight when you're doing this, but you can go a little bit harder when you're using cotton. But that really just disappears. And now let's reshape it just so that the yarn kind of can situate in there and we can really make sure we don't distort the ball too much. But yeah, there we go. And that's like a pretty much flat and seamless kind of end right there. Cool. So now we're going to come where our yarn is, and we're going to go into the exact same spot that it's coming out of, not splitting any of the yarn. And I'm going to bring it to somewhere else, kind of far away. Going through a space. Yep, that feels good. And then we're just going to pull this until the yarn disappears inside. This is creating tension with this tail so that it doesn't come back out. So I'm going to go ahead and do this one more time. And as you can see, we're doing this in multiple different directions, which is also going to help. Oh, I can kind of feel, oh, it wants to poke. It's coming through any yarn. It's splitting it. No, I think we're good. What? Get the traction. All right, cool. So just so it disappears, that feels good. And now I'm gonna push down and give the yarn a little snip close to the body. And then that yarn should just disappear right in. If it doesn't, take the back of your needle and just kind of like push it in like that. But we're good. So I'm gonna reshape this real quick and we'll take a peek. And there we are. So we have a nice little body to work with here, looking circular from the top. You can always too hit this with some steam, whether using acrylic, cotton, or wool, just to help it kind of settle itself out, but we should be pretty good here. But yeah, there we are. So next up is going to be the button. So let me grab all the stuff for that, clean this up, go figure out where those scissors wandered off to, and I'll see you there. All right, so it's button time. Material-wise, we're going to need our black colored yarn, our off-white colored yarn, your crochet hook. I found these scissors. They did in fact grow legs. I did cut them off. And some pins for when we sew it down, as well as a darning needle, also for sewing. But let's go ahead and get started. Now, there isn't going to be anything new here if you've been following the Pokeball series. So to start off the button, we're going to do a magic ring with 6 single crochets in it. Starting in the off-white, in case I didn't say. Cool. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So let's go ahead and give this a tighten up. And then per usual, I'm just going to count backwards. This is going to be a full invisible join, so let's just make that long to begin with. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So I'm going to go in from the back of the stitch. Oop. These ones are always tight. Put the loop back on my hook. And, well, my hands just aren't listening to me right now, are they? Cool. And then pull that through. Give that a nice little tighten. Pull that loop shorter. And then, oh, I'm going to make that a little bit longer than that. Whoop, 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 whoop. Cool. And then we'll go underneath where we did that pull through, put the loop back on our hook. All right. Give that another tug just to tighten everything up. And complete the join. There we go. Okie dokie. And then we got a little bit of a hole there, so I'm just going to go ahead and tighten this up a little bit more. Cool. So now we'll start round 2 with the chain, and then this is just going to be your standard increase round. So I'm just going to do my invisible increases all the way around. Oop, without splitting my yarn. Cool. All right, like I said, pretty standard. How's your all's day going? Mine's been pretty good. Just woke up, made some breakfast. I've been practicing like using some like masa harina to make like pupusas and tacos. So I made some pupusas, which if you've never had, definitely check them out. I think they're Venezuelan. Correct me in the comments, but they're like little masa harina patties that are like stuffed. I usually do like cheese and jalapeno. They're so good, so good, so good. Welcome to Food Talk. Okay, so we are almost done here. Got one more stitch. And that hole is really refusing to close at the beginning. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this along, and I'm really just going to give this bad boy a tug. Whoa. Use all my strength. There we go. That's what I like to see. Get this back on. So round 2, we're going to close with just a regular slip stitch join because our next round is going to be back post. So I'm going to find that first stitch of the round. Just go right in there and do a slip stitch. Perfect. So, like I said, next round's going to be back post single crochet split stitches. There we are. And we're gonna need the black. So let's go ahead and start with the black for round 3, and I'm gonna chain in the black yarn. There we go. And I like to move those over to the side before when we start. And this first one can be a little hard, but we're gonna go around the post of our first stitch. It's where we put the slip stitch into. There we go. And so I have the off-white colored yarn on my hand. I'm gonna yarn under, pull through. Then I'm dropping the white, picking up the black, and then yarning over, pull through to complete that first stitch. I'll do one more of these with you, and then I'm gonna do these off screen. So I'm gonna go into my next stitch, which is going to be, whoopsies, right over here. I'm starting the construction early today. So I'm in the stitch, I drop the black, pick up the off-white, yarn under, pull through, and then I drop the off-white, pick up the black, and yarn under, pull through. So there's number 2. So I'm just gonna continue doing those around. It'll be, what is that, 12 in total, and I'll meet you right before I finish. Cool? Cool. Okie dokie, so I got 2 stitches left here. So here's my number 11. Pick up my off-white. Whoop. Looks like we got a little bit of a snag on our yarn, so we'll try to avoid that in the back so we don't accidentally make it worse. Cool. And then our last one is going to be like how we were doing it in the ball. So we're going to go underneath this first stitch here and the part of the slip stitch for our very last one. So I'm going to go into that stitch. That's where the snag is. Cool. I just felt my hook go into it. You see that right there? Did we avoid it? Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to go into that stitch. Then I'm going to scoop around and go underneath the slip stitch. Should look something like that. Now drop the black, pick up the white, and finish off this stitch. Well, I guess yarn over, pull through, then drop the white, pick up the black, and finish off the stitch. Okay. And here we're going to join with a full invisible join again. So let me just like get this a little bit long real quick. I didn't untangle my yarn at all when I was doing those, but that'll be fine. Okay. Whoop. So we're just gonna go into the back of the first stitch, trying to get it all on camera, but you guys know the struggle. All right, cool. Throw that on my hook, pull it through that first one, give that a nice tug, and tug the tail in the back too. Now I'm going to shorten down this loop, and then we'll come in here, go underneath it, put the loop on the hook, and here we go. Get that a nice little tug. And I have the black on that I'm working with, and I'm just going to pull that through to finish off the round. Now we're done with the white, so we can go ahead and snip this, leaving just a 2-inch, 5-centimeter tail. Bloop. Cool. And then I'm going to detangle this now. That was pretty painless. It could have gone way worse. All right, so round 3, or no, sorry, this is round 4. It's just gonna be a regular increase round. So we're just gonna single crochet increase all the way across. I'm gonna start with the chain. And this is black into black, so it might be hard for you guys to see, but it's a standard increase. So, I mean, I don't think it's really gonna be that difficult for you guys to do. And I'll probably just finish this on screen with you guys. What other updates do I have? Not much. I think when the time of this video coming out, I think it's my birthday week. What am I doing for it? I am just gonna have some friends over and cook them some dinner. A lot of food talk today on crocheting with cats. But I don't know. I think it'll be fun. And then I think after we do dinner, maybe we'll go out and do something. But I'm keeping my options open. Okay, what did I just do? I did a single crochet, so we're at increase. I split that one. I'm just gonna redo the whole thing. And increase. Single crochet and increase. What else is going on? Not much. Weather here has been kind of insane so far for the summer. We had like a little heat wave, and now for like the past like week, it's been super cloudy, and like it rained like all day yesterday. Was that the last stitch? Oh, it might have been the last stitch. Did I do an increase there? I sure did. Let's just double check and count. So I should have 18. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Yeah, cool. So we did it. This final round, we're not going to use a join with our crochet hook. We're going to do it with our darning needle. So go ahead and cut the yarn, leaving about like, I don't know, 10 inches, 25 centimeters. We're going to be using this to sew onto the ball as well. Now we can just pull our tail through, grab our darning needle, and we're going to join this with just a invisible join stitch. Don't mind the police officers. Okay. Well, maybe I'll wait for them to pass, and then we'll go. Okay, I think they're gone. So I'm going to go, here's my first stitch of the round. I'm going to go into it from the back. I'm going underneath both loops of that V. I'm going to pull that through. And then you can see my last stitch, which is right here. The yarn's coming out of there. I'm just going to go into the middle of that stitch as well. And that's going to create, oh, they're back. We'll give them a second. Okay, so that's going to create this stitch that almost looks like a regular stitch. I'm just going to pull that till it's about the same size of our regular stitches. And there we go. So that's the button completed. Now, if you'd like to, you can go ahead and hit this with some steam to kind of push the corners in. But the method that I tend to use is I just tend to kind of like pull out these middle stitches when we sew it down to the ball. And that seems to work for me. But you do you. And we are going to, what are we going to do? We're going to attach it to the ball now. Okay. So let's get our sewing pins. And the way that we're going to do this is we're going to find where our join was. It should be pretty easy to see because it's going to be in the front here. I'm just going to squish this guy down. Okay. So, sorry, just a second. Let me grab something. Okay. So, I'm just fluffing my Band-Aid I didn't like. We are going to put the ball or put the button so that it's in the center here. One thing to kind of take note of is we have both of these black stitches, and that's going to really help us make sure that we have the button centered. And then we are also going to be placing it kind of like on here on this like second round. Like if I count from here, 1, 2, we want it to be kind of right there. So what I'm going to do, I usually like to keep the sewing side on the bottom. That's just my preference. There's really no rhyme or reason to that. But I'm going to kind of guide, so I'm over that second round right here. And to make sure we're centered, there should be like 1, 2, 3 like full looking stitches on either side of the button before you get to that black stitch. I think that looks good here. I'm gonna scooch it over just a hair. And now let's go ahead and get some pins in. And then once we have our pins in, we'll be able to really kind of tell if we like the placement. I am very notorious for making really tiny adjustments whenever I pin anything on, so get ready for that. Okay, but so far, even before we put that last one in, I like that. This little part is kind of pushing out, but we'll control that when we're sewing. We'll account for that. But I think that looks good. So we have 1, 2, 3 full stitches on this side. We have 1, 2, 3 full stitches on this side. I'm talking about these ones right here before we hit the black. So 1, 2, 3, and then the button will be here. And 1, 2, 3, there's a little black stitch. And we have the top one pinned so that it's on this second round from, like, I guess where the stripe is. So I think we're looking good. Profile, oh, that's perfection right there. Never have I ever placed something down in the first try, so that's pretty phenomenal for me. Big pats. All right, so let's go ahead and get sewing. I already have this on my darning hook, or my darning needle. And we're just gonna do a super basic. We're gonna go down into the ball. We're gonna come up through the next stitch over through the both V's on here, then go down to the next one. I'm gonna do it with you, like I do with all of mine, just so that if there's any like kind of weird hiccups or anything, I can kind of point them out. So when you're sewing, you can be more thoughtful. All right, so we're gonna start in a stitch that's like right next to where this is, our tail is, and we're gonna start kind of like below our button. So I'm gonna go like right into there. And I'm just gonna pop up real quick right over here. I'm going, what is this, counterclockwise? You can, if you're left-handed, you can sew clockwise. The reason that I like to go counterclockwise is it kind of really helps to cement the stitch that we just made, that invisible join stitch, because the first stitch we're gonna go under here is that invisible join. So it's just kind of like a way to lock it in. But if you prefer to go the other way, go for it. Okay, so I went in, came up, went underneath both V's. Now I'm gonna go over into the next stitch underneath both of the V's on my button. See where that lands. Now that would be way too far out, right? Because we wanna kind of stay underneath the button to hide the stitches. So we actually need to be somewhere around here. Now I can either be in this corner or over there, but I think for me, I am gonna kind of go over here into this stitch, and then I'm gonna try to pop up in this ridge. I'm purposefully trying to go in the spaces that are already created by my stitches. I'm not splitting my stitches when I go in. I think that that's just a little bit better way of sewing, especially when we're using our yarn, because our yarn's pretty big. If you're sewing this, if we were gonna sew this down with like thread and needle, I wouldn't be too worried. Okay, so we're in our next stitch. I'm gonna come up and over. And none of these stitches are in stone, right? We can always kind of go back and kind of redo some of our stitches if you want to. I think we're looking good right now. Okay, so take that off. Go into my next stitch over here. And this is where we're in a tricky part. If it's really kind of hard to scoop around this little black section of the ball, but you know what? I'm feeling adventurous today. So I'm gonna go in and I'm just gonna go like directly across if I can. Does that feel, yeah, that feels really good. Perfect. That's why these kind of bent needles are really helpful. You know, before I wasn't really a big fan when I first started using it, but now I've really kind of been singing their praises, because it really does help when we're trying to do this surfacely, because the needle's already kind of like shaped to like go in and bend itself up. So use what you got, but if you have the opportunity to get one of these needles, I highly suggest trying them out. Okay. So I'm looking at this already, right? And I'm noticing that this is looking pretty flat, and we kind of wanted to avoid that. So I'm thinking that I actually might go back a few stitches just to kind of see if I can pull this one out a little bit. And this is what I'm saying, where like none of these are in stone. See, like I can just take this, oh, drop my needle and pull it out. But I'm gonna see if I can kind of just round that out a little bit more. Remember that because that the button is small, the actual geometry of where we place the increases is going to be a lot more kind of apparent. Like the, what would that be? There's the hexagon. So don't be discouraged if it doesn't look perfectly circular, because it's not. Even when we fix this, we're probably still going to have like a little bit of a look of angularity, but we're trying to limit that as much as possible. Okay. So I'm at the spot now where we had put in, sorry, let me get this threaded. I'm gonna actually just cut it so that we can have threads of all the same length. Cool, that'll make it way easier. So I'm right now where we had gone underneath the 2 bumps of that stitch. And so before I was going like where? I think I went in right here. So because I know I want to pull it out, I think I'm going to go out and down. So I'm going to just go 1 stitch over, but I'm still going to kind of come up where I was before because I did like that placement. And we'll see if this works. The one thing that we can kind of run into when we pull our stitches out like that is getting the actual like sewing stitch to become visible, because it'll be like on the outside of the button. But sometimes we might prefer that than the alternative. Cool, so I think I like that because that's gonna pull this one now a little bit that way. Yeah, so that still looks fairly flat to me. And now I'm kind of contemplating if we went 1 more back. Let's maybe go 1 more back, actually. Try that again. Ooh. Okay. Yeah, I think this is where we actually want to take this and we want it to go. Oh, well, so there's the problem, right? Because if we take you all the way over here, that's not going to look good. We want you to be like here, right? I think that's kind of what's going on here. But that's going to be super duper visible. But maybe if instead, okay. Remember that there's timestamps. If you're not having this kind of trouble, please hit those timestamps. You can fast forward. But I do like to just show my thought process when I'm doing stuff and my mistakes, because I really think it helps to kind of demystify the, like, oh, I actually want 1 more. It does kind of help to demystify, like, how, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Like your teachers aren't perfect, you know? They make mistakes. Some of the, like, best artists that you know that you look up to are making mistakes all the time as well. You know, just most of the time people don't see it. And I think because people don't see it, they think that these people that get really good at a craft or at drawing or whatever, don't go through like these same struggles. And it kind of makes, I feel like, achieving, or it can become discouraging when like you're not doing it perfect all the time. All that to say, I don't know, I'm just a human, you know, we all make mistakes, especially when we're learning and even after we've learned. So, okay, our goal is we want to pull this out over here. So I'm going to go into where I first entered, but instead of coming up right next to it, I'm going to actually go over to here. And I think that is going to solve our problem. Okay. And now we're going to come up into this stitch, and that's going to get pulled over fairly far. now we'll go into the next one and still go down to that same place. Come up, actually though, now that's shifted everything. So we're gonna come up into there, right next to kind of where the ridge is. And see if that helped. If that didn't do anything, then I think we're gonna just stop it there. Okay, that did it. Do you see now how this has like a nice slight little curve to it instead of just being a perfectly straight line like it was before? That's what we were going for. So, you know, we did it. A little bit of trial and error, a little bit of elbow grease, and we're there. Okay, so what stitch do we want next? We want U next. And then over. And we're still in the same spot, so I'm gonna go into the black and try to scoop underneath it. Like I said, that area can be tricky to kind of pull that stitch off there. So if you need to go into the ridge and then into the black, that's totally fine too. Okay, so now we'll go up into here. Now I'm not pulling these stitches super tight. I'm pulling them kind of just until they meet the ball. If we pull them too tight, you're gonna get some like puckering around the edge, which I'm trying to avoid. Okay, so now it looks like we want to go into the ball and then kind of angle it up. Again, sorry for the construction sounds. There's like 2 sets of scaffolding. So there's like scaffolding on like the house over here across from me and the house over there. And luckily, I think they're only working on one today, but sometimes they're working on both at the same time. And it's like, why do I pay rent, you know? Okay. So now we need to come up into here. Okie dokie. Looking good. We're still I'm liking the shape. So this is another one where we might want to pull it. So we might want to get this stitch up a little bit higher than it naturally wants to go, just to make sure that we can keep our shape. I'm going to take this out. And it looks like we want to come up like in the middle of our join, if possible. Nice. Okay. Small victories over here on the channel. And then up. Yeah, we got a nice little rounded net over there. So now we'll go into here. And this one's going to want to be up a little bit more too. Okay. It's all kind of just about taking your time and stitching with intention. I feel like that's kind of the hardest thing about sewing, is kind of finding the balance between like being hyper vigilant with each stitch you do and kind of keeping it efficient so it doesn't take you like 25 hours to do one stitch. And you'll get there. You kind of start noticing stuff as you do it more. It's just like with crochet, just like with any skill, you start developing a like innate understanding of where everything is and where everything needs to be. Makes it easier to guide it there. Okay. Awesome. So we're in there. That stitch felt like it only went through like part of a single crochet. And we're gonna see what that looks like, because if it does a weird pull on it, I'm not gonna like it. Oh no, that's fine. Okay. So we're almost done here. I'm gonna go into here, pull this one out, and it looks like we can get away with just going underneath the blue ridge, or the light petrol, if you will. And I will. I'll come up through the next one. And we are just a few stitches away from finishing. So before I do the next stitch, I'm just gonna grab my crochet hook and I'm gonna shove these tails in. Now my tails are fairly short, But if yours are really, really long, you're gonna wanna cut them. We don't wanna be like adding a whole bunch of bulk into here, but a little bit isn't bad. It kind of helps to push out the center of the button. But again, we're not trying to stuff it. Cool, those are in. So let's resume our last few stitches. Now this last one, do you see how we have that flat line? So I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna come out like there. This is like one way that I try to gauge it when I'm starting out, is I'll go into the stitch and I'll pull it to where I think I want it to be, and then I can kind of look to see if that looks good, and it does. So now I know that my next stitch needs to exit the ball from where my needle's going in. So right there. So let's go into the stitch. I totally just forgot where that was. It is right there. Cool. So we're going to go into the stitch and I'm going to aim to exit where I said I wanted to. And that should, in theory, ensure that this stitch will be over there. Cool. So it looks like I'm at my final stitch of the round. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into this stitch and then I'm going to pop out where this stitch that we already worked is going in. So I'm going to go into here and try to pop out where that first stitch was. And this is going to be a challenge. But I think I'm up to the task. And I think you're up to the task too. Okay, cool. So I'm just gonna bring the needle through and then kind of pull it to the front. Don't use your teeth again. Grab some pliers if you can't get any purchase. Cool. So now what I like to do is kind of like reform the ball, make sure we've got a good sphere, double check anything. You know, we pulled it out a little bit, but that still is kind of bothering me. I think I'm just hyper focused on it. But we got a pretty good circle on that button. It's kind of cute, actually. I think we did a really good job, actually. Okay. Not me knowing how to sew. All right. So then we just want to bury this. So I'm going to go, and notice here, I'm going underneath. I'm trying not to go around any of the button stitches because that's going to add bulk. So I'm just going straight underneath into the inside of the button, and I'm just finding a place where it's naturally going to go through. And this is going to be like how we buried the yarn tail with the body. So I'm just putting my needle through, kind of feeling around, trying to find a space where it will just easily slide through without going through any stitches. I'm aiming to do it as close to the opposite side of the button as possible, but you know, it may not happen. I'm then going to go grab my pliers and pull this through. Perfect. And we still need to kind of worry about puckering, but we do want to pull this a little bit tight. Cool. And then also now we want to reshape the ball one more time just so that, you know, we don't cause any undue tension and change the overall shape. But that feels good. Now I'm going to just do that like maybe 2 more times where I'm going directly into where that yarn is coming out, making sure not to split it. So I'm not trying to make a knot. And then I'm going to just exit somewhere else. That feels good. Now I'm going to pull that through until this disappears. There we go. Now I'm going to go back in and just finish this off one more time. Now, if you're really worried about this coming undone, what you can do is go in, come out one of these black stitches, work around that stitch and go back in. That'll just kind of help cement it around the same stitch, give it another little anchor point. When you do that, don't pull it too tight because you will distort the ball because you're almost making a knot, you know, like a half knot. You'll see because we're going to do that in the next section. Let me get those pliers one more time. Okay. But yeah, you'll see us do that in the next section. You just want to be careful not to pull that too tight. Cool. So we're disappeared here. Yeah. All right. Now I'm gonna give this a snip close to the body, and that should disappear back in. If not, you can just kind of take your needle and use the back to kind of just like push that in. And now I'm gonna just do one final kind of reshaping on it just to make sure everything's good. And there we are. We have all of our tails hidden inside the ball, and we've got a cute little button on there. Awesome. So next up is going to be crocheting the net, and then we're going to sew the net onto the ball. So let me get set up for that and clean this guy up because he's got little bits and bobs on him. Schmutz, get that schmutz off you. But yeah, I'll see you guys there. All right, bye. Okay, so it's time for us to start crocheting the net. Now, the net is going to be crocheted completely in black. However, because it's kind of hard to film black on camera to make sure you can see all the stitches, I'm going to be using this yarn. And if you're interested, this is Drops Paris in the color Royal Blue. I'm also going to need a few stitch markers, 3 to 4 will suffice, and then your crochet hook. Couple things though before we start. So the net's going to be crocheted in like one long row. I guess technically it's going to be crocheted in like a whole bunch of short rows, but point being, the way that we're going to like illuminate it here at the top of the screen is I'll have it separated into sections, but there's not going to be any row counts at the end of each row. So just kind of be aware of that. Also, because we are going to be working some chains and then working back into them, if you do work it really, really tight, you're going to want to up your hook size. So if you're using the same yarn as me, or same weight as yarn as me, same hook, instead of a 3, I would go up to like a 4 millimeter. But just kind of be aware of that if you're really, really tight. It's a great opportunity to practice controlling your tension a little bit more. But that's pretty much it. There's going to be some more nuances, but we'll talk about them when we get to them. Okay, so to begin, you'll grab your black yarn, and we want to have a pretty long starting tail. So we want our starting tail to be about like 2.5 feet, or what is that, like 75 centimeters long. I'm going to grab my tape measure here because we are actually going to be using this tail to sew the net to the body. So that being said, if you are using a yarn that's going to be heavier than an Aran weight yarn, then you'll want to go up for the length of this tail. And I think it's pretty safe to go an extra like 6 inches or 30 centimeters per yarn weight larger than Aran. Okay, so I got my long tail. I'm going to start with the slip knot. Now, to do the slip knot right, we want the long tail away from us. And here's the working yarn that's going back to the ball, and I'm going to start my slip knot with that. That way, when we pull on the yarn, let me show you. When we pull on this yarn, that's what tightens the hook. Not super important, but you know, best practices and all that. Okay, so let's get going with section 1. So section 1 is going to start off with 9 chains. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Then we're going to do 3 single crochets. Now, whenever we do a series of chains, we're going to treat it kind of like if we were starting crochet normally. So our first single crochet back into the chain is going to go into that second back bump from the hook. Now, it's very important that we always work into the back bumps when we're able to. Cool? Cool. So I'm going to go into that first back bump, or I guess the second one for my hook, rather. And there's 1 single crochet, 2, and 3. Oops. Cool. So next, we're going to chain 11. Let's go. So I've got 1. Oh, that's split down there. Let me fix that. The chain, we really don't want to have any split yarn here if you're one of the people that kind of just lets it ride that way, because it will be fairly visible. All right, so chain 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
9, 10, and 11. Cool. So now we'll do 3 single crochets. So I'm going into the second back bump from the hook. And I got 1, 2, and 3. And that's going to be the end of section 1. So now we'll move on to section 2, and we're going to start section 2 with chaining 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now we're going to do 4 single crochet. So first back bump, second back bump. Start in there. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Notice here that we do have the back bump before the side of that single crochet. So you should end up right next to where that single crochet was, where you started these chains. Cool. So there's 4. Now we want to chain 15. That's 1, 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Get myself some more yarn. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Now we're going to do 4 single crochet. So find my second back bump. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now we're going to chain 3. So 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to chain 4, my bad. And now we're going to do 3 single crochets. So go into that second to last back bump. 1, 2, 3. So we should end up right where the side of that single crochet is. Cool. So we'll just have a quick check-in. You should have something that looks like this. Cool. All right. So let's move on to section 3. I'm going to get myself some more yarn out. And we're going to start section 3 by chaining 11. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Perfect. Next up is going to be 3 single crochets. So second back bump from my hook. And we'll go 1, 2, and 3. Looks like I split that one. There we go. Now we will chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And now we'll single crochet 5. So second back bump. And 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. This should make another one of these kind of like little corner meetups. So we should have the side single crochet there. So something that looks like that. Okay, so here's where we're gonna need to start needing our stitch markers, and there's a couple little extra steps. So with section 4,
So section 4, first we're going to do a single crochet into the side of this single crochet right here. So if we look at this real quick, here, let me elongate this. We have a full single crochet right here, right? And then that's where the chain started. So if I tip this over, here's the side of the single crochet. And whenever we work into these sides, I want to go underneath both loops of the stitch that comprise that side. So that's going to be this loop right here and this loop right here. If I kind of pinch them together, do you see how they kind of combine to make that stitch? They're a little off center, but we want to go underneath both of these whenever we work into the sides of our single crochets. So let me tighten this back up. So single crochet into the side to start off for section 4. I'm going to go underneath that loop and that loop. That's what it should look like. And I'm just going to do a single crochet as normal. Now we'll be working into the back bumps. I want to do a single crochet in this back bump here, my next stitch. And I am going to put a stitch marker in here because we're going to come to it later. So just throw one into that stitch. Cool. Now we have 5 single crochets. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay. So you should have be here now. So next what we're going to do is a single crochet 4 together, where we're going to combine 4 stitches into one. It's like a decrease, but 4 stitches. And the ones we're going to do is this back bump, the side single crochet of this little leg, the side single crochet of this leg, and this back bump over here. So just for clarity, because we're going to do a couple more of these, I'm going to go into this back bump right here. Then I'm going to go underneath both loops. Remember, these are made of 2 loops here and here of that single crochet. Then I'm going to go under these 2 loops of this single crochet. So here and here. And then this next back bump that's there. Cool? All right, so let me show you what that looks like. We are going to be pulling up a loop in each one of these. So first is going to be the back bump. So pull up a loop, that's 1. Now I need to go underneath both stitches of this leg, of the side of the single crochet. So there's 2. Now I need to go into the side again, make it easy for you guys to see. We got 1 right there and 1 loop right there. So I'm going underneath both of those. There's our 3. And then our 4 is right here, that back bump. So I'm going to go into there and pull up a loop. So we pulled up all 4 stitches. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on our hook, and then we're just going to yarn under and pull through all of them. Now this will naturally pull it pretty tight, so don't worry too much. Like, we are looking good. We do want this loop to be about the same size of our other stitches, so just kind of be aware of that. All right, so we did our 4 together, which means that's the end of section 4. So to start section 5, we're going to do 3 single crochets into these back bumps. So there's my first back bump, and I'm going to work a single crochet into there. Now this should be tighter. Like, do you see how there's no gaps in this little section? That's what we're looking for. So there's 1. There's 2. And there's 3. Now we're going to want to work an increase, 2 of them. This first increase, we're working only into the back bumps here. So we're going to put both stitches of the increase into that back bump. So go in there, do 1 and 2 for my increase. Now in the next stitch, we're going to do another increase. Again, both of them into the back bump,
but I'm going to mark this first stitch of the increase. So there's my in. I'm going to throw a stitch marker on there. And crease, second stitch going right into that same back bump. Cool. Now we have 3 more single crochets to do into those back bumps as usual. So 1 and 2 and 3. Oops. Or not oops. Okay. Yeah, there we go. And 3. Okay. Sorry, just checking the pattern real quick. So now we have another single crochet 4 together, and it's going to be the same way that we did before. So the back bump, the 2 loops to the side, 2 loops to the side, and back bump. So we'll go into our first back bump over here, and there's 1. Now I'm going underneath both loops of the side single crochet. There's 2. Now I'm going to go through both loops of the side single crochet, or the sides of the single crochet. There's 3, and then I have got a back loop right here. Going to go into there. There's 4. I should have 5 loops on my hook, and now I'm just going to yarn under and pull through all the loops on my hook. Perfect. And that's going to be the end of section 5. So next up, we'll move on to section 6, which is going to start with 6 single crochets. Okay, so find my back bump. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, I need to pull out some more yarn. Whee! Okay, now we're going to chain 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to place a stitch marker in the back bump of this stitch that's on my hook. So if I kind of turn it sideways, we can see that my working yarn is coming out of here, and there's that back bump right there. That's the one that I'm going to want to mark. It can feel a little awkward, but you'll be fine. All right, so now we got our stitch mark. Now we're going to do a little kind of maneuver where we are going to bring our yarn. So I've got my yarn oriented like this, right? My hook's in my right hand. I guess the chain knee part of the chain is here, and the back bumps are kind of facing on the outside. I'm going to kind of just fold this down. Do you see that? I'm not even folding. I'm kind of just like rotating it down to meet my stitch marker that's in that increase. I'm gonna do that one more time for you guys. So I'm gonna go down here, and now I know that I'm facing the right way. So let me just orient it so where we need a stitch. You should have something like this. You see how the back bumps, when I'm sideways, the back bumps are facing me with the stitch marker. That's what we're gonna want. And what we're gonna do is we're going to work 2 slip stitches, and we're gonna start in this marked stitch that we have here. So I'm gonna go ahead and take that stitch marker. Now remember, with these slip stitches, they should be the same size as our other stitches. We're not working them crazy tight. So there's slip stitch number 1. And then in the next stitch, right there, we're going underneath both loops in here, and then we're slip stitching. So we'll have another check-in. I got 2 slip, it just hit the camera. I got 2 slip stitches that went under both of those loops. And then I have my back bumps kind of facing me. Cool. From here, it should look like this, where we have the chain pieces and the back bumps are facing away from us. Okay.
So now we can move on to section 7. Now with section 7, we're going to start with the chain and we're going to mark the back bump of this chain. And this back bump's going to look a little kind of weird. So I'm going to do my chain, and do you see how that back bump kind of just is like a long line there in the back? That's fine. That's what it should look like. Go ahead and throw a stitch marker into there. I'll turn it around too so you guys can see what it looks like from the other side. So there's my one chain. If I turn it to this side, it looks kind of weird for a back bump, but don't worry, we're good. So you did your back bump, you have your marker in there. We're going to chain 4 more. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. We should have 5 in total. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Cool. Okay. So next up, we need to work a few more slip stitches. This time, we're going to be doing it in the marked single crochet of section 4. So if you're following along with me, it should just be the next one coming up. And we're going to be working underneath both loops of the stitch. Notice I didn't turn my work at all. So we're just going to bring it completely down into here. Take out that stitch marker. And slip stitch number 1. And slip stitch number 2. Okay. And let me see, that is going to be the end of section 7. Yeah, that's the end of section 7. Okay. So section 8. This one's going to be a little bit tricky, so we'll kind of go slow. So we're going to want to turn our work clockwise. If you're left-handed, you'll be turning it counterclockwise. But if I just go, oh wait, yeah. So if I, the way that I like to make sure I'm turning clockwise is I'll put my hook sideways so that it's facing me, and then just turn the work in the direction I'm supposed to. So if clockwise, I'm going to go down and around following the work. We'll get this over that little lump. But you should have something oriented like this. So if you notice here, I have my hook, my working yarn is on the right side of my hook, and it looks like it's coming in front of my actual crochet. So if you're right-handed, that's the way you'd want it. If you're left-handed, it would just be this but mirrored. But the thing that's important to note is that this working yarn is in front of your crochet. Let me show you, just for troubleshooting purposes, if you turned the wrong way. So let's say we have our stuff oriented here and we turned counterclockwise. We have something like this, right? Where our hook and our active loop is on the back, but our working yarn is in the front. We don't want that. Both of these need to be coming out of the front of the work. So again, if we're here, we just did those 2 slip stitches. I'm going to turn my work clockwise, get this little leg out of the way. And here we are in the correct orientation where both our working yarn and our hook are at the front of our work. Hopefully that makes sense for you guys. Okay, so we turned our work. Time to work, wait, let me make sure we did this right. Okay, cool, yeah. Okay, so 4 single crochets is up next, and we're going to start in this back bump here. And this can be a little awkward looking too, right? So we have this back bump marked out of that row of 5, so you can always count back from there if it makes it easier. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So do you see how it's just that weird little guy right there? This guy right here? I'll do that again for you guys. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That little guy right there. So I'm going to go in and put a single crochet. This stitch could be a little tricky. If you need to use like a stitch marker to help you pull it out, feel free to. But I'm going to just do a single crochet in there, and then I'm going to work 3 more single crochets in these back bumps. So there's 1, there's 2, and then here we are with 3. Okay, so here we are right next to our marked stitch.
And to get us oriented here, this is our back bump, right? And then we have those 2 slip stitches that we worked. Our next stitch is going to be a decrease. We're going to do it invisible style, and we're going to go into the back bump here and just that front loop of that slip stitch. So the front loop right here of the slip stitch, and then the back bump. So let me get that stitch marker out. So I'm going to go underneath that back bump and then immediately go underneath the front loop of that slip stitch. Just like so. Yarn under, pull up a loop, and then yarn under, pull through both loops on my hook. Perfect. So now what I like to do is this stitch marker right here, just kind of go to the side of it, and this next little chain, that back bump, just go ahead and throw another stitch marker into there. The reason we're doing this is we're going to work another decrease, and sometimes when you pull on your decreases, these back bumps can have a tendency to disappear, so this is just going to hold it in place to make sure that we don't lose it. Now this decrease is going to be also worked in an invisible style, and it's going to be a little bit tricky to get into. So I would suggest using this stitch marker around the back bump to kind of help pull you in. And we're going to be combining the back bump and then the front loop of this slip stitch as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is go underneath into that front loop with a slip stitch. And now we need to get this onto our hook as well, coming from the bottom. So I will like turn my hook to really kind of just pull this out and kind of wiggle my hook under there. It is kind of a tricky stitch to do, but it's going to be worth it. And we have this in, so we're not going to lose our stitch. Okay, I don't think, yeah, so it looks like I can kind of get some purchase, but, oh, there we are. Cool, so I'm underneath both, and now I'm going to take out my stitch marker. It might be easier for you to not do it with the stitch marker in there, but that's completely fine. The stitch markers just might help so that you don't lose it or when you pull it through. Now, you'll notice that there isn't a lot of give here, so you kind of need to be a little bit careful when you're pulling through. So I'm going to yarn under, pull through, got through the first leg. Cool, 2 loops of my hook, and then I'm going to yarn over and complete that decrease. Cool, that's probably the hardest thing that we're going to have to do for the net. So great job on you guys. So now we have this back loop that we marked. We're going to work 4 single crochets, and these should all be in those back bumps. So we'll go ahead and take this bad boy out. And work 4 single crochets. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. You should end up next to the side of some single crochets. And that's going to be the end of section 8. Now in section 9, we're going to start with a decrease, but we're going to work this decrease as like a regular style. So over the course of these 2 single crochet sides, we're going to pull up a loop in both of them. So decrease going underneath both loops of the side. Section 9 start, by the way. I'm going to yarn under, pull up a loop. Then I'm going to go underneath both loops of the next side, the side of the single crochet. And I'm going to yarn under and pull up a loop. I should have 3 loops on my hook, and I'm going to yarn under and pull through all 3. Perfect. And now all we have left to do is 5 single crochets. So we'll go in there. There's 1. There's 2. 3. 4. And 5. Wonderful. Cool. So here we are. You should have something. Let me just pull this
that looks a little bit like this. So you have kind of like two triangles with some like little spokey things. And mine's a little wonky, but this is something that you would really kind of want to kind of just like block the back of. So here, let's finish this off real quick. So to cut the yarn, we want to cut leaving a 6-inch or a 15-centimeter tail. I think at the beginning here, I said 6 inches was 30 centimeters. That's a lie. I don't know why I said that. But yeah, so we want to cut the yarn, leaving a 6-inch or 15-centimeter tail. Now, this is not going to technically be used for sewing, but we are going to secure it before we bury it. So if you are using a yarn that's going to be a higher weight than Aran, then I would add an extra 6 inches or 15 centimeters onto the length of this tail, just to make sure that you have enough to do the securing. So that looks good, and like 6 inches to me. I'm going to give that a little chop. And then we aren't going to do a chain to secure it. We're just going to pull this bad boy through. Cool. So now let's take a peek at this real quick. So here is our net piece. Let me see if I can press it kind of just to help a little bit. No, that didn't help. But here's our net piece. So we have like a couple of triangles here, and then just some like spokey double-sided X's looking kind of things. Now, if you are going to steam block it or just block it in general, which I kind of recommend you do, it's going to help kind of even out everything and make our sewing this onto the ball a lot easier. But what you want to do is you want to steam from the back, right? Because we don't really want to upset our stitches in the front just in case we mess up. And the way that you'll tell that you're at the back is if you're right-handed, the two tails will be here on the bottom right. This is going to be the front side when it's oriented like this. Again, if right-handed. So if I'm right-handed, if my tails are here on the left, this is going to be the back side of my work. Right side of my work, right-handed. Back side of my work, right-handed. If you crochet left-handed, this is going to be the opposite. So if you're left-handed, the right side of your work will be facing you when the tails are on the bottom left, and the wrong side of the work will be facing you when they're on the bottom right. Cool? Cool. So I'm going to hit this with a little bit of blocking just so that you guys can see kind of the difference that it makes. And I'm going to go and make my net out of black. And once I get back, we will attach this bad boy to the ball. All right, see you in a sec. Let's get that net attached. So we're going to need our ball, our net. I'll bring the blue one along too, just for some reference stuff. And then you'll need your darning needle. So just real quick before we get started, I just want to show you, like, after I hit this with some steam, do you see how much nicer that kind of lays? Just a nice little finishing thing. Also, I want to talk about some like terms that we're going to use beforehand and kind of like talk a little bit before we actually get started here. So we have our net. Just for review, if you crochet right-handed, then the tails are going to be on the bottom right. If you crochet left-handed, your tails are going to be on the bottom left, and that's how you'll know which side is right side up. So left-handed, right side up, right-handed, right side up. Now we're also going to refer to these little kind of ends as spokes. So if you ever hear me say spoke, I'm talking about one of these bad boys. Now the other thing is some of this instruction, as you can tell, is going to be different whether you're right-handed or left-handed. You crochet right-handed or left-handed, so right-handed or left-handed. So we're going to kind of go over some diagrams real quick, just so that we can all be on the same page of what's going on. I'm going to start with the right-handed people, then go to left-handed. As always, there's timestamps down below, so you can jump to wherever you need. All right, so right-handed people. When we are looking at our net, and our net is right side facing us, starting where on the spoke with the tails, we're going to label that one as N1, that's net 1. Then we have N2, N3, N4, N5, N6, N7, and N8. Cool? Now, the ball is going to be fairly similar. So if we have the ball facing, or the two single crochets looking at us, the one on the right is going to be B1 for ball 1. Then we'll have B2, B3, B6, B7, and B8. Got that? Cool. So now let's talk to our left-handers.
So left-handers, it's going to be pretty much the same. We're just going to go in the opposite direction. So the spoke with the tails is going to be N1. Then going clockwise this time, we have N2, N3, N4, N5, N6, N7, N8. Then for the ball, we'll be starting with these 2 single crochets again, but this time we're going to start with the one on the left. So that's going to be B1, then B2, B3, B6, B7, and B8. Cool? Cool. So with those kind of parameters laid out, listen to what I'm saying. If you're left-handed, I'm right-handed, so I'm going to sew this right-handed. We're going to film this as if right-handed. But if you are a lefty, if you listen to the words and kind of see the instructions in there, they are going to be the same for you, just using those terms. Cool? Cool. All right. So to begin, the first thing that we want to do is make sure that our net's going to fit. And to do that, with the right side facing us, we will put it on top of the ball and kind of just like push it down and see where we are. So I have like the center of this X here on the center of the ball where we started. And if we kind of look here, do you see how the spokes are kind of like just like right on top of those black stitches? I'm not doing this perfect. We don't need it to be perfect. That's where we want to be. Now, if your spokes are sitting like all the way up here, you need to remake the net because you made it way too tight. If your spokes are like on the black, that's probably okay. But if they're any further than that, you really are going to want to remake this. We want to sew this under a little bit of tension just to make sure that it sits correctly. That meaning that we do not want these to be completely over. We want that little short distance. That is also to say that if you're sewing this with a yarn that breaks easily, wool or Chanel even, you might want to attach a different yarn for the sewing, just so that it doesn't break in the middle of what we're doing. Cool? Cool. All right, so let's begin. So to start off, grab your darning needle, and we are going to put the ending tail, that'll be the short one, onto that darning needle. And we're going to start by beginning to close this little back section here. And to do that, we're going to start with an invisible join stitch. Same thing that we did to close up the buttons. So I'm just going to take this, and with the right side facing me, I'm going to go underneath that first single crochet of N8 at the spoke end from the back to the front underneath both loops. Cool. Now I'm going to go into the top of the single crochet of N1, and I'm just going to go through the center of it right there and then pull that through. And I'm going to pull that tight just so that it closes itself up and take out my darning needle. Now this might reopen as we're sewing, but don't worry, we'll be able to close it off again. And now it's time for the actual sewing bit. So we'll have a setup around, and then everything else that we do will be pretty much the same sewing instructions after that. So for our setup, I'm putting the long tail, that would be the starting tail, onto my darning needle. And the first place that I'm going to go is I'm going to go into the ball in between B8 and B1, just in the center of the, first thing that I should probably tell you is when we're looking at these single crochets around our ball, these black stitches, we have kind of like the top of the row of the round and the bottom of the round. We always want to work in the bottom of the round when we're working in between these stitches because we want our spokes to be as close to this ridge as possible. Cool? Cool. Okay, so back to stitching. So we want to put our needle in between B8 and B1, and then we want to come out on the other side of B1. So I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to come out on the opposite side of B1. So we'll go in there and come up. Cool, that looks good. Now in all of this, we don't want to split our stitches. So I'm going to pull that tight and get this net, lay the net on the ball to make sure we're in the right orientation. So remember, if we're crocheting right-handed, our tail should be at the bottom right here still. If left-handed, your tail will be at the bottom left. Okay, so now let's grab this blue one just so that we can see. So each one of these spokes has a side that has a single crochet, and then a side that has the chain that we worked that single crochet into. So for our next stitch, we're going to go from the bottom to the top of N1, but on the chain side. So let's go ahead and get that on here. So I don't know if you can see this on there, but there's my kind of like starting knot for the slip knot. And then right here is that first chain. So I'm going to go underneath there, again, not splitting the yarn. And I'm going to give this one a good little tug just to kind of get it down there. Cool? Now we're going to go over to B8 and go through the chain underneath both loops of B8. Awesome. Okay. Now our next stitch, if we kind of look at the ball, we have the side of B8 that's closest to the light petrol colored stitches. I'm going to go into B8 there, and then I want to come out at B2 on the side that's closest to B1. So let me show you that again. I'm going to go into B8 on the side that hasn't been worked, and I'm going to bring my needle all the way over and come out at B2 on the side closest to B1. Try to get that little dot out of there. Woo! There we go. Okay. So I'm going down into the side of B8 that I haven't worked yet. And I'm bringing that needle all the way over to B2 on the side closest to B1. And let's go ahead and get that in there. Ooh. There we go. And give it a nice little tug. Cool, cool. All right, quick break. I need to go plug my phone in. It's about to die. That's what I'm recording on, by the way. Woo. Okay, and I'm back. Sweet. Okay. So now for the rest of the instructions, I'm going to be using those terms, the N1 and B, the N and B terms, and we're going to always do this kind of the same way. So we're going to come up and work through the chain side. Here, let me show you on here. So we'll always, whether you're right-handed or left-handed, you'll come up through the chain side of the stitch, then go over and down into the single crochet side of the stitch. Then you'll go down into the ball on the side that you haven't worked yet, and you'll come out on the side of the next ball stitch that's closest to where you went in. Cool? Cool. All right. So let me get all set up here, and let's start our first sequence. So our first sequence, we're going to go into the chain from the bottom to the top of N1. Now these chains, just so you can see, can sometimes feel like they are like angled. That's kind of a bad example. But like here, right? Like this chain almost, oops, can we focus? This chain almost feels like the lines aren't the same on either side. That's fine. You'll be able to wiggle through, but just make sure you're going underneath both loops. So when I look here, I can see chain, chain. My next one is like here. There's one loop of it. There's the second loop of it. So I'm going into N2 chain side. Then I'm going to go over to the single crochet side of N2. And now I'm going to go into the ball at the side of B2 that I haven't worked yet. And I'm going to come out at B3 on the side closest to B2. There we go, just like that. Now we want to pull these tight so you know that they stay in there, but we don't want to pull them so tight that we start puckering the ball or the stitches. So palpate, move around if you need to. Cool. So we're looking good there. So now I'm going to go into B3 at the chain. 1, 2, 3, here we are.
Now I'm going to go around to the single crochet section of B3. Or sorry, of N3. And then let's kind of look at where we're going to put our next stitch. So our next stitch, we're going to go in to B3 on the side closest to the button, but we want to come out over here on the button. And the stitch that you want to come up through is, if we count our stitches, one above where B3 is, and then towards the button, if we count 4 stitches, so like starting with the one we went up to, so 1, 2, 3, and 4, you should be pretty much right along the button, and there should be a stitch kind of right there. We want to go into, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4. We want to go into the bottom left corner of it. So do you see how I got in there? So 1 up from B3, then 1, 2, 3, 4 over towards the button, and I'm going to emerge from right there. Sorry for the motorcycle. So I'm going into B3, and then I'm coming up here. Nope, needle's angled the wrong way. That looks good. Okay. And now we will pull that one down there, nice and snug. When you're doing this, you can kind of pull the net over to where it goes, and that's going to help relieve some of the extra like tugging that you would need to do in order to get the stitch in the right place. So now we want to go to N4, and we're going to go up through the chain side. Then I'm going to go over into the single crochet. And then this one is going to be another tricky one. So where we emerged from, or from the button, so where we just came out of, I'm going to see wherever that stitch is, and I'm going to just follow it and go to the opposite angle, or the opposite corner of that stitch. Still along the button, and I'm going to go into there. Now I'm going to re-emerge in that same round, just on the other side of the button. Cool. So I'm going to come out from here. I'm going to go in from here. And this little step, we might need to do a readjustment on, just because it can be a little tricky to get this alignment right. So, yeah, that's where I want to be. Okay. And then we'll give this a tug. So when I'm looking at these spokes that are next to the button, I pretty much want them to be at like 11 o'clock and 1 o'clock, just to try to keep them even. Cool? All right, so our next sequence, sequence 4, we're going to come up through the single crochet of N5. Or sorry, up through the chain of N5. Then down through the single crochet of N5. And then we're going to kind of do the same thing. So the stitch that I'm in right here, I'm going to try to get to that opposite corner of it, which is pretty kind of below where my button is, but that'll be okay. So I'm going to go in there, and then I'm going to come out over here at, what is this? B6, right? 4, 5, yeah, B6. So I'm going to aim here, and then aim to come out at B6. Cool. And then we'll take a peek here just to make sure that we like the alignment of these spokes. Again, we want them to kind of be situated at 11 and 1 if the button was a clock. And then pull this down. So yeah, I think we have some pretty good alignment right there. This one actually looks like it might be a little too high, but that could just be because we don't have this other spoke in yet. So let's give that a tug and then really look at it.
Yeah, so that one's feeling a little high to me. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back. I'm going to undo this. And I think that instead of exiting where we did, I think I'm actually going to exit one stitch over from there. Poke that back in there. Okay. So let me get this back on here. Doing these live, not mistakes, but you know, live troubleshooting with you guys, just so that, you know, you've already heard my diatribes. I think I kind of waxed poetic enough in this video about it. Okay. There we go. So I'm still going to go in the same spot here, but I think instead of coming out where I did, I'm going to actually go one more stitch over, because I think that'll kind of offset it and make it look good instead of actually going one stitch down, because we do want to continue to stay in the same round as this stitch is made. So I'm going to go in, and instead of coming out here, I'm going to come out right here. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to come out one stitch over, just like that. Okay, let's get you back in there, tighten you up. And we'll go back into our N, where we 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the chain side. Come back over, go down the single crochet side. That was a split. Woo. A single crochet is kind of being tricky. Maybe we'll approach it from the other side. Yeah, okay, cool. Now hold that down and then go into it. Yeah, that feels right. Okay. Now I'm going to do the same thing where I go into the stitch at the opposite corner, and then I'm going to come out at B6. And then we'll see how that kind of lays, if that lays a little bit better for us. Yeah, see that? That looks way better there. All right, cool. So we're on our, sequence 5. So I'm going to go into N6, underneath the chain, go over to the single crochet of the spoke, move, and then we'll go into B6, coming out at B7 on the side closest to B6. So into B6, over to B7, whoop. Nope, almost, there we go. Coming out of B7 on the side closest to B6. Now this is where the tension's going to start to kind of get pulled as we're getting everything in place. So I just like to kind of periodically come back here, reshape everything. Let's see, do we still like the placement of that spoke? Yeah, we do, because this is going to get pulled over. Sweet. All right. So now it's N7. So I'm going to go into this chain side of N7. And then over to the single crochet side of N7. I'm going to pull that tight. And I'm going to pull my ending tail out of the way.
just so that it's there. And then we're going to go into the ball at B7, and it can be hard to see, but we want to come out at B8 on the side closest to B7. So I'm going to come out from right there. You might have to move the net up to kind of see it. But I'm going to go into there, and I'm going to try to, yeah, there we go. Okay. So I'm going to pull that over and really give that a good tug. So we are looking good here. This is where I kind of like to check around, make sure that I'm liking the placement of everything. Yeah, that feels nice. Looks good from the top, pretty even. Sweet. Okie dokie. So now we're going to kind of finish these over, or finish this out. And the way we're going to do that is, this is going to be really hard to kind of find, but we have that last chain of N8 on the spoke. I'm going to go into that from the back. So I'm really going to try to angle in there. Cool. And then get that kind of pulled in there. And then now we're going to try to go into the chain of B1. So that chain is going to be right next to this little knot right here. So it's right there. If you need to, we can count. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I'm starting right here at that first one. So we're going to go into the chain. And then we're going to aim this to go into the side of B1. So if we lift this up a little bit, we can see that B1's right there. So I'm going to go into the chain and then down into B1 as well. Cool. And now we want to angle our needles so that we come up in one of these black stitches. Now we don't need to go super far with that. So I'm just going to kind of aim to come out over here, kind of below where N2 is. But really anywhere is fine as long as you just come out in the black. So like right there, that's going to be more than fine. Ooh, wiggle that through. Okay. And get that in. Now this is where we're going to adjust. So I'm going to give that a pretty tight tug just to make sure everything's in there. And now I'm going to wiggle the ball around just to make sure that our tension is good. Our stitches over here aren't like puckering. If they are, I'm going to like kind of squeeze them back out. Really kind of manipulate the ball to make sure everything's lying the way that you want it to. And then once we're good, we're going to secure this. So like, you see like here in the back, I'm going to give this guy a little tug up. And I'm going to give you a little tug up too, just because I think we are getting a little too tight right there. Cool, that helped a little bit. Sweet, okay. So now this is going to be important to help us really secure this stitch in place. So if you can see, I'm coming out right here with my black yarn. I'm actually going to go over into like a stitch either to the left or to the right. It doesn't matter. I kind of like going back towards where I entered to kind of create a pseudo back stitch. But I'm just going to go into the space where that stitch is, one over, and then I'm going to come out at the black again, but this time I am aiming to go a little bit further away from where I am, like almost to the opposite side of the ball. Again, doesn't have to be the exact opposite side. We're just trying to get a fair distance away so we can give this another securing. Cool, so we got through there. So I'm going to pull this just until it becomes flush. Cool. And then we're going to reshape again, just to make sure that we can maintain the spherical shape with all of this extra tension being put around it. So looks good. We're looking good. All right. And now I'm going to do that one more time. So I'm going to go not into the place that I just came out of. I'm going to go over into a stitch. And then this time, now I'm just going to bury my yarn as normal. So we're going to go in here. We're going to poke out somewhere. Doesn't matter where. Kind of want to go to the opposite side, but not super important. Awesome. Once more, we're only going to pull this until it just disappears or just becomes flush. So right there. And then we're going to manipulate it one more time just to make sure we can get our tension right. Nice. And now we will go into the same space that we came out of and reemerge somewhere else on the ball. See if we can feel our way around. Oh no, the needle, it's disappeared. It's a needle in a polyfill stack. Okay, looks like we're coming out here. Sweet. And this time, we're just going to go until it goes back into the ball. And then just for a little extra security, I'm going to do that one more time. So I'm going to go into the ball where my yarn's coming out and then reemerge somewhere else. What we're doing here is, like I said, those first 2 stitches that we did are going to secure all the stitching that we did for the net. And then these last 2 are just to help bury the tail to make sure that there's a whole bunch of friction so that the net's not going to come off. This is also why we do want the net to stretch a little bit over the ball, is it's going to help tighten itself. If it was too loose, it'd be a lot easier for these stitches to come out. So I'm just going to give this a little snip and then wiggle everything around one more time just to make sure that we can keep this sphere shape. But we are looking good. We are almost there, guys. So the last thing we need to do is bury this tail. And we're going to do this a lot in the same way as we did our last one. First, we're going to secure it around one of the black stitches around the equator. And then we're just going to bury it as normal. We don't really need to secure this one as much because we do have that invisible stitch in there. So I'm just pulling that invisible stitch tight just to make sure everything is close to each other. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to aim to do this underneath where this joint is. So I'm kind of just aiming down below there. Any point doesn't really matter. And then I want to come out at the equator somewhere in the black area. And that one, I am going to pull kind of tight, and then we're going to manipulate, make sure we keep the tension, make sure this isn't like pulling itself in too much. I think that looks good. Now we will go around one of the stitches, either to the right or the left along the equator. So again, I like to back stitch, so I'm going to work towards where we first entered. And I'm going to go around just this stitch, just going one stitch over. And now we're going to just take the needle and have it exit anywhere on the ball. Okay, that works. Move the net out of the way. Again, just until that disappears. I'm going to hold that because my tail is a little bit longer. So just until that becomes flush. Now another round of manipulation just to make sure we have good tension everywhere. And now I'm going to enter back into the ball in the same stitch I just came out of, and then anywhere a fair distance away. Where are we? That was through a stitch, so we don't want to go there. There we go. Remember, don't use your teeth, kids. Cool. We can pull that one down and then give it a snip. Yahoo! Alrighty. So one final kind of shaping. As always, you can hit this with a little bit of steam if you want, but I don't really think that we necessarily need it. But there we are. That's a finished net ball, y'all. Looking really, really good. It's got a good, I don't know, net ball shape to it. Anyways, congrats on finishing up your net ball. Let's go ahead. I'm gonna get everything set up and we'll do our little discussion as always, and I'll see you there. If not, I'll see you guys next time, but stay for the discussion. We do some cool stuff. Anyways, see you in a second. Boo, whoop.
Not that much that I actually want to discuss this time, but there is one major thing, and that's going to be the full invisible slip stitch joins. So these little join spots right here. Now I really enjoy this join. I think it really does help kind of keep the stitches looking the same, which makes it a little bit more camouflage, especially with these Pokeballs, because like a lot of them, we have the join in the center so that we can cover it up with the button, and I think this just really helps with the consistency of the look. Now that being said, if you do look really close here, can you see how it almost looks like one of these, where the join is? One side is higher than the other. I'm not sure what's causing that. I'm thinking it might be when we do the chain to start the next round, or possibly it could be the tension, but I'm gonna test that out a little bit more, and so we might do the rest of the Pokeballs using this join method, but I don't know, this whole project has been like a way to test out new techniques, so you'll see it in the future if you see it, and if you don't, you don't. But yeah, that's gonna be pretty much it for the video. I want to just say again, thank you guys so much for getting me to almost 1,000, or maybe we're at 1,000 when this comes out. I still don't know yet, but I'm super appreciative. I've been doing YouTube for like a year and some change now, and it's just been really amazing to see all the support coming from you guys. So please continue comment, liking, and subscribing. As soon as we get I can get monetized, I'm gonna start investing in like better equipment for the videos, which I'm kind of excited about, so I can keep on bringing you like high quality, cool, fun, and interesting things. So yeah, I mean, please continue to comment, like, subscribe, hit the hype button. I'll throw my socials up on the screen right now. And just like a good quick reminder that this pattern, the written version, is going to be available on my Etsy, and it will be on sale for a little early bird special until the 5th of July of this year for, what is it, 25% off? So it'll be like $1.50. But yeah, that's going to be it for this video. Thank you guys again, and until next time, see you later. Bye. Take 2. Time for us. Oh. Whoopsies. Okay.